I talked to a client earlier this week, and he had a scenario where he was on a date, a first date, and it was about 2 hours in, and the woman was completely cold to him at times. She still had her jacket on the entire time, even though they were indoors, was like holding her jacket. She was tight, but she was still talking to him. She was still opening up and still asking some questions. And he told me normally before we talked, he'd be like, oh, she's not that interested. She probably doesn't want me to flirt. She's not that type of woman. And he's like, you know what? I listened to what you said. I'm going to start testing the waters, get some physical contact in, tell her something I like or find attractive about her, and see how she reacts. And so he took that leap of faith. And she was okay with it. She didn't rebuff his advances. She let him get close and all that. As they were walking out, he decided to go for a kiss. She kissed him back and they made out for a little bit. Then he invited her back to his place and he's like, hey, it's still early. She went back. They hooked up that night. They hooked up in the morning.
Don't obsess about the perfect signs that she wants you to make a move. But there are 3 common signs that usually mean a woman's into you. First, is she showing you warm body language?
Is she like facing you? Is she not like constantly facing away and tight? Is she not on her phone and disengaged? Is she in conversation? Is she present? Things like that. Is she opening up in conversation? Is she willing to talk a little bit more? Not just give you one-word answers, get a little personal, share a story, get real about something. It doesn't have to be very serious, but if she's just like, yeah, I moved there about 6 years ago, and she's like giving you short, curt answers all the time,
then that's often a sign of disinterest.
And I think the third one is if she's being curious or investing in you. So if she's going out of her way to ask you questions, ask you more questions, ask you about yourself, or eventually you're texting a woman and she's like, hey, yeah, I would love to come out and go here, and she actually commits to it, that's your best indicator. Because if somebody's taking a proactive effort to invest in you, to be curious, to meet up with you, to make time for you, then that usually says a lot. I would say that if a woman's still talking to you and still willing to give you her time and not checking out, then you just have to assume she's at least open to it. You just never know, man. Sometimes you got to just slowly move it forward and have the courage to move it forward. And then listen, if she's like not investing back, if she's like, hey, I just don't feel comfortable with that, or I don't feel that way, then you kind of know. Or if you told people that scenario, a woman's on a date, she's closed off, she's keeping her coat on, she's got her arms crossed, should you make a move? Everybody would be like, no. And that's not necessarily true. If you listened to that, nothing would have happened. Now they hooked up, she stayed over, no big deal. Look for the signs, but also if you're interested and you're not sure, still take a shot.